Look, before I begin, I just do want to, further to my remarks from yesterday, and given I'm back here in Parliament today, I just did also want to acknowledge again Nikki, Kaye, and her immense contribution to this place, but also to her community and also to New Zealand. I didn't have the privilege of working with Nikki. Our careers crossed politically, but I knew her a little bit, and I knew that she lived her life pretty full on. She had incredible energy and enthusiasm. She had a very big intellect and was whip smart, and just so huge amounts of determination, resilience and tenacity in everything that she did. So she is going to be, we're very grateful from the National Party point of view for her contribution over many, many years. We are going to miss her greatly, but it has been lovely actually to see the testimonials and the respect that she's been held in from people all across the political spectrum with their remarks over the last 24 hours. So I just thank everyone for that. If I can just reflect back on our first year in government, we have made real progress for Kiwis and their families, achieving tangible results that improve lives and get New Zealand back on track. At the heart of our work this year has been supporting hardworking Kiwis by rebuilding the economy and lowering the cost of living. And through disciplined spending and good, careful financial and economic management, we've seen inflation fall. And as a consequence of that fall, interest rates are now also falling. We've seen a rise in business confidence, creating the conditions for future economic growth and employment. Growing the economy is how we create opportunities and how we drive prosperity for all Kiwis. A strong economy with incomes growing faster than prices is how Kiwis get ahead, and how we as a country can invest in the things that matter to all of us. Things like delivering world-class healthcare, education that works for everyone, and a police service that keeps communities safe and also protecting our environment. Today you would have seen the positive news that the OCR has been cut for the third time this year, which is more good news for households and businesses. Many Kiwis are already seeing relief with mortgage rates falling, allowing their budgets to stretch a little bit further and giving families an extra dose of confidence heading into Christmas. Minister of Finance Nicola Willis will obviously have more to say about this shortly. Unfortunately, we can't fix all of New Zealand's economic challenges overnight, and we know that many families and many businesses are still doing it tough. The economy is coming out of a very deep and protracted recession that has put immense pressure on household finances and also businesses' bottom lines. That's why we've ensured that 83% of Kiwis keep more of their hard-earned money through the first tax relief that we have seen in 14 years to lower and middle-income working New Zealanders. Also, our Family Boost initiative is supporting more than 40,000 families with their early childhood education costs, putting more money back into the back pockets of hard-working parents. On law and order, we want to restore law and order so that people feel safer in their homes, their businesses and their community. And this year we have worked hard to equip the police with the stronger tools that they need and introduce sentencing reforms that put victims first and discourage reoffending. We're already starting to see some really encouraging results. Ram raids are down more than 60%. Police foot patrols have increased by 30%. Aggravated robberies are down 11%, and serious assaults have dropped 3%. Our new Young Serious Offender Framework will address the unacceptable increase in youth offending that we've seen in recent years, ensuring that young people who do offend are held accountable while receiving support to turn their lives around. In health, we know we have some serious challenges. We have made record investments to enable access to quality, timely healthcare to New Zealanders. And there is a long way for us to go, but our government will continue to prioritise health outcomes. We've put unprecedented amounts of investment into health, almost $17 billion over the next 3 budgets. We've invested $604 million in funding boost for Pharmac so that we can extend 26 new cancer treatments to Kiwis up and down the country. We have more work to do, but we've got off to a promising start. Education, of course, is how we get to ensure our young people have the opportunities to move from one set of circumstances to a much better set of circumstances. And our focus has been very clearly on getting our kids back to school and teaching structured literacy and structured mathematics so that they are set up for success as they enter high school and can follow the dreams that they have and can actually live better futures than their parents. We've also put a big focus on removing the mobile phone ban. That's been fantastically received, and obviously immediately putting in place an hour of maths, an hour of reading, an hour of writing each and every day. But we want to make the investments in education because we know that's how we have the future leaders for agri-science, artificial intelligence and the engineers that we need to build 4-lane freeways to the north. We're also addressing New Zealand's infrastructure pipeline and deficit, which is holding back productivity and growth through strong investment in an enduring infrastructure pipeline and by powering up our new National Infrastructure Fund. We have 149 fast-track projects that will deliver thousands of new homes, better roads and renewable energy capacity while also boosting jobs and growth across the country. And we are supporting Kiwi farmers by cutting red tape. The red tape is just regulations with no benefits, reducing costs and getting Wellington out of farming. And our work to drive new trade agreements, enhance current relationships with key partners, is unlocking opportunities for all of our exporters and will boost our economy. This year already, we've led 8 trade missions with delegates representing 128 Kiwi businesses to Brazil, China, Japan, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand and the US. And these delegations have reinforced New Zealand's offerings to our trade partners and also strengthened our partnerships. In conclusion, the achievements we've made in just 1 year are thanks to the resilience and the determination of everyday New Zealanders. With inflation now within the target range and another OCR cut welcome today, the outlook is positive and we are on the right path. I feel 12 months into this job more positive about the future for New Zealand than at any point. We have a fantastic future ahead of us. Yes, we have some tough choices and some tough decisions to face up to, but we're doing that and we're on the right pathway. There will be bumps along the road, but we remain committed to getting New Zealand back on track with a strong economy that ensures that all New Zealanders can stay healthier, benefit from a higher quality education system and enjoy safer communities. Just to talk a little bit more about the OCR rate cut, I'll pass over to Nicola.
Thank you, Prime Minister. It's a pleasure to be here today to mark a year in government and a pleasure to be here on the day the Reserve Bank reduced the official cash rate by a further 50 basis points. Since August, the rate has now been dropped 1.25 points, and this is welcome news for families and businesses. For people with mortgages, the impact will of course depend on the size of their mortgage, whether they're floating or fixed, and what rates they're currently on. But to give one example, a family with a 25-year, $500,000 mortgage could expect to be about $180 a fortnight better off than it was just a few months ago if its rate dropped from 7 to 5.75%. Add that to the tax relief that took effect on 31 July and the Family Boost childcare payments that many households are now receiving, and many families are better off in New Zealand than they were a year ago. For businesses, of course, lower rates means lower borrowing costs and more money in their customers' pockets. That's good for them and it's good for everybody. We need our business people to have the confidence to invest, innovate and take risks. When they do, they create jobs and opportunities for people and generate the revenue that funds the health, education and law and order services on which New Zealanders depend. There is a long road ahead, but the steps the government has taken to carefully prioritise government spending, invest in frontline services, reduce red tape and restore confidence in the economy are having an impact. We are headed in the right direction. Prime Minister, I'll hand back to you now.
Great. Well, look, Nicola and I do need to catch a flight shortly, but let's keep the questions pretty tight. But with that, happy to take any questions you may have.
The growth forecasts in the monetary policy statement being downgraded since August from 3.4% next year to 2.4%, and the following year from 3.1 to 2.2, I think it was. How worrying is that?
Look, obviously there's a couple of things going on there. One is there are global factors. China is slower than many would have hoped it would be. Growth coming out of Europe is fairly insipid. There are potential challenges for other countries. But part of that is also the story which Dominic Stevens outlined as the Chief Economist for the Treasury last week, which is that a range of economists following COVID overestimated how enduring the productivity bounce back would be. And what you've seen is that the hangover from the big spending party during COVID has lasted longer and been deeper than had been forecast. What that basically means is that people were overestimating what productivity growth would be in future years, and economists are now adjusting their expectations. However, let's be clear, next year this economy is forecast to be growing and growing a lot faster than it has been in the past year. That is good news. Things are getting better.
Given those comments then, does that mean that you're throwing out the expected surplus in 2027-28? Is that just not on the cards anymore?
I will make an announcement about the government's forecasts and the surplus position on the 17th of December.
Those forecasts must be under pressure now, given everything you've just said, given the news from China, given the news from the US. I mean, that surplus expectation must be under some pressure now.
Well, look, the government's job is obviously to control our discretionary spending decisions, and we have been very focused in government on getting down that spending track so that New Zealand can have more sustainable finances. We continue to do that. However, we've also been clear that when it comes to the overall growth position, there's that which we can control through our policy positions, and we are, things like fast track, reducing red tape, making sure that we are doing productivity enhancing infrastructure. That all helps. But when the revenue forecasts come down, that does make the path to surplus more challenging.
Sorry, guys, just 1 minute. You go.
Oh, thanks. Did you overpromise and now are you under-delivering? Overpromised before the election, just in terms of the fact that interest rates were always rising aggressively. There was always a very high chance that GDP growth would underperform.
No, we promised that with careful fiscal management, we'd get inflation back under control. We have. We promised that when inflation was back under control, interest rates would drop. They are. We promised we would deliver fiscally neutral tax relief to 3.5 million New Zealanders. We have. And for those who say, oh, well, it's just inevitable that inflation and interest rates come down, just look over the ditch.
Is the consequence of that, though, is that economic activity is more sluggish than it otherwise would be, and that's what's helped bring inflation?
Oh, look, I just reject that characterisation. What I would put to you is that this is a government that is on the side of growth, that is doing everything it possibly can to have policy settings that give businesses the confidence to invest and therefore grow. The business confidence surveys show that. Businesses are far more confident about their future and their growth prospects with this government in charge than they were with the last. But I'd also highlight this. If we had stuck to the plans of the previous administration, there would have been far more pressure on inflation. The books would be in far worse shape and interest rates would be higher. I think New Zealanders made the right choice to put responsible economic managers in charge. We never promised we would fix every problem overnight, but we have done the things we said we would, and we are making good progress.
And if I could just add, I mean, the thing I would say is that, you know, this generation of political leadership has had to relearn the lessons of 35 years ago, which is if you let government spending get out of control like it did under a Labour administration and go up 84% and deliver, you know, at the end of the day, borrow more, tax more, spend more, hire more, and actually then drive into domestic inflation, then drive up interest rates, then put the economy into recession for the last 3 years, and ultimately put huge pressure on unemployment. That is the history of economics that we've had to relearn. And so we have been working our way rather assiduously through to make sure we have daily practice around good financial management so that we can be a good partner to monetary policy to lower inflation and also obviously interest rates. It is good to see business confidence at 10-year highs. They know it's tough right now, but they know that there is a plan that is going to get them to a better place. And now our focus goes back to growth and jobs, having dealt with the large part of cost of inflation by keeping a pressure, and we've got to maintain that pressure on spending, on inflation, on interest rates, so that we can now move to focus on growth and high quality jobs. And that's the exciting part of what we want to achieve so that we can realise the potential.
Winston Peters has been quite critical of your tax.
Winston Peters has been quite critical of your tax cut package, saying that he didn't agree with it, that he thought it was unaffordable, it did nothing to impact growth, and all it really did was mask the economic situation that New Zealand was in. What do you say to that?
Well, I disagree. I mean, the reality is we did tax relief for low and middle income working New Zealanders by adjusting tax thresholds the first time in 14 years. That is about a cost of living initiative rather than an economic growth initiative. What we are united on is actually how we need to grow this economy. And, you know, we've talked about it. The 5 big pillars that will fundamentally lift our prosperity as a country, given the challenges that we've had now for 30 years around a productivity disease, is world-class education, you know, science, technology, innovation, get rid of the red tape and bureaucracy, modern reliable infrastructure and stronger international connections. Those are the things that we're working at on the long-term economic plan to make sure we build a bigger economy and obviously have high-paying jobs.
And Pam, if I can just add to that, I've seen his comments in context. And actually the point he was making was that the last government left the economy in far worse shape than New Zealanders realised at the time, and actually that we realised when we first came into office. And his point was tax relief was never going to be the growth big fix, but that's not what we promised. We said tax relief was necessary because cost of living had got so high for so many New Zealanders. And Winston's right. Without cost of living relief, this winter would have been a lot harder for a lot more people, and they would have felt even more sharply the damage the last government did to the economy. And I'm glad that we followed through on our promise and gave them some relief.
Is Winston Peters right when he says that you're struggling, Prime Minister?
Sorry?
Is Winston Peters right when he says that you're struggling?
No, I'm enjoying this job and we're working very well together. Yeah.
How seriously are you taking the Chinese ambassador's remarks to RNZ that New Zealand joining AUKUS Pillar 2 would have a negative impact on our relationship with China?
Well, look, what I would say is over the last 12 months, we're in pretty much the same position we were 12 months ago, continuing to explore the opportunities for New Zealand's involvement in AUKUS Pillar 2 or not. But as I've said before, and I've said to Premier Lee and also to President Xi, this is an important relationship for us. It's a 50-year-long one. We have huge areas of opportunity to collaborate in the areas of trade and people-to-people connections and climate change in particular, but we also have differences, and we will continue to raise differences with each other as we should in a mature relationship, and we will have differences of opinion around that. I saw the remarks around foreign interference. We will call that out as we will our differences publicly, privately, predictably, consistently, and that's what we've been doing.
Sorry. Would you characterise them as threatening?
No, they're just the fact that we have differences, and it's okay for us to have differences around that. And I just say to you, at the moment, we're still in very much the exploratory phase around AUKUS.
If we are just in the exploratory phase, then why is Wang saying that us joining the pact would, quote, lead almost inevitably to greater divisiveness, confrontation, or even conflict and war?
Well, I disagree with those remarks. That's what I'm saying to you. We can have differences of opinion, which we can express to each other in a way. Sorry?
Is China overreacting?
In my view, I just say to you, we will have differences and we talk about these things. It's quite normal. We do the same thing with our relationship with Australia around 501, deportees. It's quite mature, it's quite responsible. We have relationships at a top-to-top level that have been built over the last 12 months, which I'm proud about. But it does mean that when we get in a room, we can talk straight with each other.
Prime Minister, the ambassadors also said today at an event that the SIS's sort of remarks around foreign interference and the naming of China amounts to mis and even disinformation driven by possibly by another country. What do you say to that?
Strongly disagree. You've seen me call out very strongly and publicly in the last 12 months instances where China has had foreign interference on our parliamentary systems, for example, and we'll continue to do that. So again, we can disagree about that, but we know that we have a relationship where we can collaborate, but we will also call out differences with each other.
Back to Peter's comments, I mean, he also said that not only was the economic situation not rightly known, that National didn't know it in advance of the election, and and made it.
Oh, I love Winston, but rest assured, we know.
Just on health, there's 1,500 jobs.
Sorry.
1,500 jobs proposed to go in health. How do these cuts help the health system and the outcomes you spoke about earlier?
Yeah, look, I've seen those, I'm aware of those job losses. I just want to say up front, I know it's incredibly challenging for families and individuals that are impacted by that. I also want to acknowledge that a number of those job losses are also vacancies, and they're actually not people with real jobs at this point in time. The big focus and the big area of job losses has been sitting in the digital and data side, and that is again in the spirit of us wanting to make sure that we move resources from the back office to the front line. That's a decision for Health New Zealand to make sure that they can deploy those funds into things that we need to see, like as you've seen even in the last few days, 50 more doctors, more recruitment at the front line.
What's the breakdown, Prime Minister? Are you aware of the number of vacancies and the number of people that are actually in jobs?
I've seen different sets of numbers. There's 1,500, I've seen up to 700 could be vacancies rather than people in permanent roles. But again, I just ask you to direct that back to Minister Reti and to the Ministry of Health.
Do you have any evidence that these cuts won't make the already stretched health system?
Well, I want to be really clear with you because there is no cuts going on here. This is a government that spends No, let's be clear about the investment, because it's about the value for money and the results that are achieved. And I know that's a difference of our government in the last 12 months, is it's not just about the budget, new money, it's about the money being spent and what kind of value for money we're actually getting from it. If you come from outside of politics and you actually look at families who are wrestling with their family budgets, or businesses that are looking at their spends and have had to deal with high inflation, high interest rates, suppressed demand, they end up looking at their total budget spend. Am I getting value from it? But this notion that we are spending $30 billion a year on healthcare. This is a government that has spent more on health than any previous government, put another $17 billion in top over the next 3 budgets. So there's plenty of money going into the system, but we want to make sure the system needs, and every government agency needs to look at its resources and deploy them and move them and change them and move it around in order to get better outcomes.
Areas where they're cutting jobs.
Sorry?
A couple of the areas where they're cutting jobs, though, is the public health team, which included in that is people that deal with, for instance, the whooping cough epidemic that we're going through, and also the smoke-free team. You've just announced a smoke-free policy today. How do you justify cutting those jobs in line with the direction that you want to take in the health system?
Well, again, our health system is a huge system. It has huge amounts of money and budget and resources associated with it. What we have said is there's 4 things we have to do. One, we have to get the funding in place, which we've done. Nicola and I delivered that through Budget 24, and we can continue to do that. Huge amounts of money, unprecedented levels of cash going into the healthcare system. The second thing is we want real focus in the system to deliver outcomes for patients, and that means we're very clear about the 5 targets that we have. We know there's also more work that is needed in primary care, but that's what we're asking the system to deliver. And we want everybody to have maximum clarity around those goals and around those targets. Then we're making sure that we're making progress on workforce recruitment, and we know that's a major challenge. It has been an ongoing issue in health for some time. But if you think about it in the last 12 months, how we've made progress on recruitment of nurses, they're not all in the perfect places. We want more in different regional communities. We want some more in mental health, a bunch of things like that. We're trying to open up more places for doctors, either imported or homegrown. And then we've got to make sure that we've got a proper organisation that is operating in a high-performance way. And that's why we made a very difficult decision, but an important one, to actually put a commissioner in. Because as we put $17 billion more into the system, I want to know that good money is going into a good organisation to get good outcomes for New Zealanders. Because it's not good enough just for us to sign off and say, hey, we're putting more money into it, and just leave it to chance as to what outcomes get derived. So again, in the context of that, I expect the Chair and the CEO and the Minister and Health New Zealand to make sure there are plenty of resources there. There is great clarity on what we're expecting you to do. How you organise your resources to deliver those outcomes for New Zealanders is what I'm expecting. And that is the mode and the philosophy of our government working with all government agencies. And I appreciate that is very, very different from what may have gone on in the past, where people may just look at spends rather than looking at outcomes. But we cannot be in the perverse situation we were in the last 6 years, where we had an 84% increase in government spending, and everybody thinks it's okay that outcomes went backwards. It is not okay. New Zealanders want us to deliver. We're a government that's focused on delivering, and we're going to try each and every day to get better outcomes and better results for them. Why? Because we have a fantastic future, and there's no reason why this can't be the best country on planet Earth. But we've got to make a big effort to get things done for New Zealanders, because they are over the bumper stickers, they're over the slogans, they're over the spends, and not getting things done.
Prime Minister, can I ask you some questions about the radioactive storage facility in the Manawatu?
Yeah.
Some of the locals feel a bit deceived that the storage facility was built there without their knowledge. Is that fair?
Look, what I'd say on that is I'm aware of the story, but what I'd say is that the management of that material has been done in a very safe, secure way. It doesn't present a risk to anyone. It's also been done in consistency with our national security considerations, and I understand the Ministry of Health actually doesn't publicly disclose those locations. It's normal practice for that, and I'd direct you back to them if you've got any further questions on it.
Is secrecy the best way to approach New Zealand's storage of radioactive waste?
Well, again, we've been doing this for some time. It's important that it's safe and it's secure, and that actually it doesn't present a risk to anybody.
You're having such a facility next door to you?
Again, I leave that to decisions to Ministry of Health, and I trust them to actually do it in a proper and responsible way.
So the government has cut tax with it.
Sorry?
She asked you whether you'd be comfortable living next to it.
Yeah, I would if the Ministry of Health thinks it's done it. Yeah, Ministry of Health delivers this in a safe, secure, responsible way, consistent with national security considerations, and it's quite a normal process. Yep.
Mr. Willis, can I just pick up on an answer that you gave to Jason earlier where you were talking about surplus, and you wouldn't be committed to saying that you would achieve surplus in 27 and 2028. You said you would touch on that later later in the year. But does that mean that the economic conditions are worse than you were expecting earlier this year?
Well, as the Chief Economist shared last week, there is trend productivity is one of the factors that goes into growth forecasts, and as he has made clear, Treasury have been revisiting their assumptions around trend productivity. So the point that I made about COVID was that following COVID, Treasury economists thought that long-run productivity would be higher than it has transpired to be, and they are now making those adjustments.
And just back on the health service, Commissioner Lester Levy told us about a month or so ago that about $2 billion needed to be made in savings. Now, today's cuts of about 1,500 jobs gets nowhere near to finding that $2 billion in savings. So does that mean that we're going to need to be seeing more cuts to the health service for them to be achieving that number?
No. Every budget I deliver will include a significant increase in funding for Health New Zealand.
Which party has the most control over the direction of the coalition government?
I'd just say I'm very proud of the National Party, and I'm proud also of the contributions of the minor parties as well. I think this is a government that has been very coherent, very united on the core things that we need to do. Yes, we have differences within it, as you would expect in an MMP environment and a coalition government, but I'm proud of the contributions of everybody.
More in control of it?
Just say to you, we've got a great government, and the coalition government is here to deliver things for New Zealanders.
I just say bigger is better.
Just very quickly, the government is doing its job, some critics would argue, in terms of cutting taxes. The Reserve Bank is cutting the OCR. What about councils across the country? Do you think that they should be doing more when it comes to rates increases?
Well, look, we've talked about that, and we've talked about rates caps and a number of other things that we think that councils should be focused on. You know, we've said focus on the must-do, not the nice-to-do stuff. Make sure that you think about the mechanisms by which you can leverage your balance sheets. You know, you've seen us increase LGFA funding for councils. You've seen us actually think about structures that would create more debt capacity, as it should be actually, for long-run water care assets, for example. If you think about Auckland, great example, was planning a 26% rates cut. We did a deal with the Mayor. We ended up creating a mechanism that actually meant they turned into a 7% rates.
Rate caps then?
The rates caps is one of the things we've talked about, as you heard us talk about at the LGNZ conference, and I know Simeon Brown's doing the work on that.
And to be clear, Minister, you will no longer commit to a 27-28 surplus?
What I will commit to is releasing our forecasts on the 17th of December, and I don't comment ahead of that.
Yep. Great. Okay, team. Thanks so much. Oh, Joe, you haven't asked a question. You just come back from overseas.
I'm just curious. What has been your most memorable day each in the past year?
I think the actual national apology for me was pretty emotionally impactful for me. Yep, for sure.
Of course, I'll never forget delivering our first budget. It was a big day. And,
okay, team. Thanks so much. New Zealand doesn't wait for anyone now.